We are one day away from the Western Conference Finals, and if you want the Mavs to win this series against the Timberwolves and get to the NBA Finals, hit that like button for us. Go ahead and like this video because Coop and I are going to get you ready for tomorrow's game, plus touch on a couple other subjects as well. It's Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Harrison Graham along with Jeffrey Cooperstein. Coop, some news from yesterday afternoon. Dereck Lively, second team all-rookie team. Yep. Kind of expected. He wasn't going to crack the all-rookie first team with Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren getting in there.
I didn't realize this, but it's positionless now. So he should have cracked the first
three
team.
Center? Would they do that, though?
They wouldn't do that.
That's kind of my point.
I do think Lively maybe deserved to be in that first team, but like you said, with Wemby and Chet in there,
maybe if he didn't miss those 20-ish games or whatever, maybe he gets in there. Look, there's no doubt about it. He was easily a top 10 rookie this year. I think, to your point, a top 5 rookie. Like, you're telling me Brandon Podziemski was more impactful than Dereck Lively this year. I just don't see that being the case, but still a good honor for him to crack the second team, and it's just kind of wild to see how this has played out, Coop, because coming into the season, all the chatter, kind of our thoughts were that Omax Prosper would be the rookie that had a bigger impact, and Lively might have to have a developmental redshirt type of season, but here he is having a huge impact during the year, but also in the playoffs. I mean, after those first 2 games against OKC where he really struggled, he was terrific the rest of the series.
I think it's very fair to say that he's performed better than expected for his rookie season.
By far.
Yeah, one of the top, like you said, 5 or 6 rookies in the NBA, and he's been a huge part of this Mavericks playoff run. In 12 games, he's averaging 8 points and 7 boards, a block a game, and he is a plus 85 in his 12 games, which is the highest mark for a rookie since Manu Ginobili.
That's incredible.
So he has been one of the best players for the Mavericks in this postseason, one of the most important players, and they're going to need him again if they're going to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're going to need another big series out of him.
It's just really why the Gafford trade was so big, Coop, because you have 2 legitimate starting centers.
Yep.
I mean, you do, and it'll be interesting long term how those 2 fit on this basketball team. But for right now, I mean, it's a beautiful thing because Gafford's been starting, but they go to Lively pretty early, and they kind of usually are both in the low mid-20s to combine for those 48 minutes, and they've both played their role. Lively, I thought the last 3 games in particular of that Oklahoma City series was very, very good, and they're going to need them to be, both these guys, to be really good against Minnesota, going up against the Twin Towers of Gobert and Towns, plus Naz Reid coming off the bench.
Yeah, they're going to need Lively to be his full self, man, and I think he really will be in this series. Now, I'm not sure how much he'll be able to do offensively going up against Rudy Gobert for the most part, but hopefully he's able to come out and set screens and run the pick and roll with Luka, and they're able to have that rhythm and chemistry, because I think that's kind of how the Mavs are going to win, especially on that pick and roll, trying to get the switch with Gobert onto Luka.
Yeah, you do wonder how many of those alley-oops that they've gotten in the first 2 rounds are going to be available in this series. Just due
maybe
to
more threes available, though.
Them having 2 7-footers, but that's just going to open up the perimeter more, so you're going to need more perimeter scoring, a.k.a. Kyrie Irving, to score a little bit more. Show some love to D-Live. Congrats to him being second team all-rookie. Get the 2s down in the comments for number 2. Now, Coop and I will be live for Game 1 of Mavericks versus T-Wolves. It gets going tomorrow night. The Western Conference Finals is here, and it's going to be a blast, man. It's going to be really, really fun. So don't miss that. We'll probably go live at either 7 or 7:15 before a 7:30 tip-off. Should be a whole lot of fun. And does 7:30 actually mean 7:30 in the conference finals?
We'll see. Maybe 7:36.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be 7:43 at least.
Yeah, but shout out to all of you for helping us get to 27,000 subscribers. Let's keep that train rolling.
That allows us to do the game tomorrow night.
Exactly. Hopefully we can. We have at least 2 more series of these, so let's keep it going.
Let's keep it rolling. All right. Ex-T-Wolves player bashing Luka Doncic, and we'll talk about this. I think there's a shred of truth to it, but I think for the most part, it's kind of just it's what have you shown me lately, and I feel like he hasn't been caught up. Rashad McCants, Coop.
It's one of those everybody has a podcast.
Yes.
kind of things.
Yeah.
Rashad McCants went off on some podcast. I'll be honest, I don't even remember which one it was. And this is what he said. He said, if Luka has an off game, he just packs it in. I think Anthony Edwards just shows I got to play defense if I'm not scoring. And I will say, when I saw this, I was like, there's some truth to this, but it's definitely not entirely true.
Well, and it's also, I think it's severely lessened. Like, I think if you said this 2 years ago, it'd be like, yeah, it's probably true. And look, game one against Oklahoma City, I actually kind of thought Luka did that. Like, he came out hot in the first quarter, had a poor second quarter, and then just kind of went through the motions, which was not a good look. But it's really been the only time I've seen him do that in the postseason, in which it's been a postseason where he's had several games where he has not been efficient, but the defense has been pretty damn good and committed throughout this postseason run from him.
And we'll outline those games here. I picked out 3 games that I saw where Luka wasn't scoring or he wasn't super efficient from the field, but he did impact the game in other ways, and we'll talk about that in just a moment.
Before we do that, we do have to talk about today's sponsor. That is PrizePicks. We appreciate PrizePicks for sponsoring this episode of Dallas Mavericks Today. If you love fantasy sports, how about daily fantasy sports? That's what PrizePicks is the easiest and most actively used fantasy sports app, daily fantasy sports app in North America. The way it works is simple: 2 to 6 player entries, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, other sports. You can cross over sports with your picks. 2 to 6 players. The more you put, more players you put into your entry, the more you can win. We got a little 3-player entry with Game 1 tonight in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like Jason Tatum, less on his rebounds there, more on Drew Holiday's points, and then less on Tyrese Halliburton's points. I think it's going to be a struggle for Indiana tonight. They just got beat up in a 7-game series against New York. I like the Celtics a lot. 10 to win 50 on that 3-player entry. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a first-time deposit match up to $100. We've been telling you guys about PrizePicks for months. If you have not created an account, this is the time to get in on the action. Link and promo code are in the description and comments of this video. Coop, where Rashad McCants was wrong is kind of what I allude to, is that this has not been Luka's best offensive postseason run. In fact, you could statistically, it's probably been his worst, although he's still been very good. But I would make a strong argument it's easily been his best defensive postseason run up to this point in his career.
Absolutely, yeah. And I kind of went and took a look at the playoff game log so far, and these 3 games are the ones that stood out to me where he wasn't necessarily the most efficient on the offensive end, but he certainly impacted the game in other ways, including rebounding, distributing the rock, as well as playing good defense. I think Game 3 versus the Clippers stands out, where he had 22, 10, and 9. The Mavs took a 2-1 series lead there. As well as the closeout game against the Clippers where he had 28. I know 28 is still a lot of points, but he wasn't super efficient in that game. 13 assists, though, and played good defense in that one. And then in the second round of this series, he had just 22 points. He was horrible from the field, but he had 15 rebounds and 2 steals and was locking them up on the defensive end.
Yeah, and I saw a tweet. I should have put it on the show, but someone tweeted out after the Thunder series, this was probably the worst series of Luka's career.
Yes.
And I think he averaged like just under 25 points, 10 rebounds, and like 9 assists. It's like,
right.
So like his C basketball is all, I quote tweeted it with this, Coop, is like Luka's bad in air quotes is still an all NBA player. It really is. Like, I mean, because he is going to get others involved. He is going to rebound the basketball. Now he is going to be a guy for the most part that commits to playing defense. That part of it hasn't always been true, but I think for the most part that is now. So yeah, that's why. Look, a year ago when Luka was incredible all season, which he was this regular season too, they couldn't even make the playoffs. This year, he's having like a B- individual playoff run offensively, and they're in the conference finals. That's not an accident. He is you don't get this far without your best player still having a huge impact. So
in summary, Rashad McCants, just watch the games, dude. That's all we ask.
Just watch the games. Exactly. This is why you watch us, and we're going to get into some key matchups to watch here in the Western Conference Finals as the Mavericks take on the Timberwolves again. Game 1 tomorrow night, 7:30 Central Time. We'll be live 7:15. So lock us in, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. These are 3 matchups, Coop, that you identified. Why don't you go through each of these?
Yeah, PJ Washington versus Cat. I think he's going to get that assignment on Karl-Anthony Towns to start at least. And this is really where you'd like Maxi Kleber because Washington's your only your only power forward on the roster right now, and he's going to have to do the majority of work against Karl-Anthony Towns because you don't want Gafford in that matchup and you don't want Lively in that matchup either, although Lively is probably more suited than Gafford. I think this one is the real key to watch. If Washington can somewhat limit Karl-Anthony Towns, then I really think you have a good chance of beating this team because you know what Anthony Edwards can do and the mismatch that they're going to have there. I think if the Mavs can neutralize Karl-Anthony Towns, it would be a big advantage to Dallas.
Yeah, and I think that matchup, by the way, goes both ways because I think the average, kind of the casual would say is, well, who's going to guard Cat? Well, is Cat going to chase around P.J. Washington and be effective defensively? I know he's been more committed as a defender, but like this might be a series where Washington brings the ball up every once in a while and see how they counter that. Is that Cat picking him up at midcourt? Are they throwing another defender at him? And if they do, that means you're probably finding a size mismatch elsewhere. So I think that goes both ways. Sure, Minnesota's going to be bigger, but I think it's going to be interesting to see, especially if they can get switches onto Gobert, like Luka's going to try to do, is how does Minnesota combat that defensively? Because I don't think Gobert and Cat want to be chasing around the perimeter that often. So
yeah, fully agreed. And I think that kind of goes on to the second matchup as well with Anthony Edwards and Kyrie. Yes, Edwards has the size advantage, but is he going to want to chase Kyrie Irving all around the court?
For 40 minutes?
Exactly, especially off ball as well. So that'll be one to watch. Anthony Edwards kind of called Kyrie out after Game 7. He said, yeah, that's going to be my matchup, and we'll see what happens. Everyone knows Kyrie's a great player. He had what even Kyrie deemed was his most difficult series of his career against OKC, and I'm not sure it gets a whole lot easier against Anthony Edwards and the T-Wolves.
Yeah, the one game Kyrie played against Minnesota this year, he had 35 points. I'm not expecting him to do that night in and night out, and but he at least has shown he can have a big impact here. Jaden McDaniels versus Luka, obviously, I would expect he will be the primary. I think Minnesota's messaging when they go through like their game plan is like, Jaden, just guard Luka. We don't care what you do offensively.
Yep.
I think he will guard him 90% of the time he's on the court, if not all the time. So we'll see. I think you might see more post-ups from Luka in this series because he's a lot thicker than McDaniels, but his length and quickness will challenge Luka on the perimeter. I don't think there's any question about that. So that's gonna be interesting to watch. And I think Coop, just to kind of add more to this, like if you're Minnesota, Cat is guarding Washington, I would guess. Yep. Gobert is guarding whoever's the center is. Edwards is guarding Kyrie. McDaniels is guarding Doncic. And that means Conley on Dereck Jones.
Yes, it does. That's another mismatch.
Dereck Jones, who's already given you a lot of offensive punch in this playoffs, if he's drawing Mike Conley, put the ball on the deck, dude, like you've been doing, and get to the rim. So, I think everybody's going to look at this and be like, how does Dallas combat Minnesota's size? Okay, you want Cat chasing around Washington. You want Conley defending Jones.
All right.
By the way, those two players just had really damn good series against Oklahoma City. So it's kind of a pick your poison. I get it goes both ways, but I don't think this is just some, fluke at this point that Jones and Washington are going to contribute. And if those are their two matchups when you have the ball offensively, you feel pretty good about those role player matchups.
Yeah, it's not a complete mismatch for the Mavs by any means. I think there's mismatches on both sides, and I think that's why it's going to end up being a great series and a long series as well, because both teams are really good at exploiting those. And so we'll see how the Mavs decide. I think you made a good point. Maybe the Mavs try to use P.J. Washington to bring the ball up a little bit to get Cat out on the perimeter, because that'll wear him out if he's chasing around the ball handler. So it'll be interesting to see. I think there's a lot of X's and O's that are going to go into this series. And an underrated thing is Minnesota's coach not really on the bench. He's sitting behind the bench right now because he had a patella tendon issue. So he's not really able to get up and stand and coach. So that's also something to monitor during the in-game adjustment period.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating series. I think both these teams are just fun. They're fun teams to watch. They're exciting. They have a good blend of youth and veterans. So it's going to be very, very interesting. What do you think is the most important matchup of this series? Let us know. I do kind of think it's Edwards versus Irving.
Agreed.
I think that one is going to be interesting. Now, that's also one of the few ones that's not a two-way one, because I don't expect Kyrie to guard Ant a ton. I mean, he's going to get stuck on him some, but can Kyrie Irving be effective offensively with Edwards guarding him? And does Edwards chasing him around impact what he's able to do offensively? I think that's definitely going to be
fascinating.
Something to watch. So, all right, game 1 tomorrow night. If there's any major news before then, we'll hit you guys with a video. If not, we will see you then. Go Mavs. Let's get after it.